This is recording titled The Christian Religion, Section B. Section B. So these Hebrews are out walking around in this really bleak area. Like there's no water, food scarce, this is happening, that's happening. It's the Sinai Peninsula, you know? But way back then, it's not the same as it is today. I mean, no place on earth is the same as it is now today, way back then. Things shift. However, it was still very bleak. Very bleak. Now, you know, there wasn't like ample water. It's not like, okay, I'm in Oregon, I'm in Washington, water's everywhere. They didn't have that. They didn't have, okay, we're going to look at this wonderful fertile place, we're just gonna start growing our stuff. They didn't have that either. It just wasn't like that. It was like desert kind of conditions, wilderness kind of conditions, not exactly receptive kind of conditions for a wonderful flourishing human existence. We need to see this. This is important to understand, and the reason we need to see it and why it's important to understand is because I want you to understand the Mosaic laws and the kosher laws. These are really important because I want to point out two very serious things regarding them. And this is part of what's going to clear up a whole bunch of stuff. One part of that has to do with the physical body, and whatever was guiding them understood their physical bodies and said, oh, well, you know, we can't let these bodies get completely jacked up, so we're going to implement these rules. And the other part has to do with hardcore, literally scary mysticism. Scary mysticism. That's the part you're that's the part you're never going to hear. Like, they would never bring this up in a church. I promise you. Like, nobody would get on the radio or on TV and talk about this. They just won't do it. Their career would be over. Because people run the show called religion. There are a board of people that run the shows called religion. I don't care what religion it is. There's a board of people running the shows called religion. And in the Christian religion, it's really watched over carefully. Okay? So please understand that what you're going to be getting here is going to clear up a lot of stupid ideas that just don't make sense to the 21st century mind, and they're all surrounding kosher law, like do this and don't do that and don't do this and do this kind of thing. Okay, so let's focus on kosher law. Now, kosher law, you can look up on Google it and find out what I'm talking about, or just follow along. I think we pretty all much have heard the phrase, that's not kosher, or that's kosher. Well, this is what the whole thing about kosher is. These are laws. Actually, they're legislations and not really laws. But the legislations govern on laws because, you know, it works a certain way. And the laws are to make sure people don't get sick or jacked up or anything like that. Like, let me give you an example. Like, I had gout attacks for quite a while. But I love bacon. I'm like the little dog on the commercial that's going, bacon, 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 bacon. Bacon, I want bacon. I'm one of those people. I like sausage. I like pork chops. Still to this day, I love it. I just can't indulge in it because, man, it's not worth it. The pain is excruciating. It's excruciating. So it's not worth doing. Well, you know, too much pork and that's what happens. Or if you don't get enough water, that's what happens. And if you eat these certain kind of things, your body will go out of adjustment. That's why whoever was sort of guiding these people, guiding Moses, and we're going to talk about Moses coming off the mountain glowing, like literally glowing. So there was something guiding them, okay? So who's ever guiding these people are saying, okay, well, we don't want these people all jacked up because these people are important to whatever we're doing. And so they come up with, not they, but it is a sign to Moses to say, okay, dude, You're going to make these laws, and you're going to bash them over the head if they don't kowtow and follow these laws, because it's for their own damn good. And you know how stubborn these people are. They're stubborn people. I mean, all the stuff that's been shown to them, and they're still acting like buffoons, okay? So that is the physical side of the kosher laws. Now, we're going to talk about the mystical side of the kosher laws. And when we start talking about that, I'm going to tell you a story. And it's a story that is just the simple truth of it. Well, it's not actually so simple. And I guarantee you've never heard it before, because they're not going to point this out. In other words, the church is not going to point this out. They spent centuries telling you to run from the very thing that was actually going on in the Old Testament. Run for your lives, run for your lives. So, they're not going to point this out. But it's in many cultures across this world, even today, especially in the eastern part of the world where they do the Asian stuff. It kind of still goes on in these certain yearly celebrations. You'll see what I mean when we get there. However, right now, let me finish up with this physical part of kosher laws. So because they're living in these conditions that are not really conducive with all the stuff they need, and because it's this environment and they're going to be in it for a long time, Moses is instructed, hey, make sure these dope heads, and I don't mean that as in pot smokers, I mean idiots. I mean like stubborn, just their demeanor is kind of whatever. You read the Old Testament, you'll see what I mean. Make sure these dope heads don't, or dopes, is probably a better way to say it. Make sure these dopes don't destroy themselves, and you know, tell them to behave like this, because if they don't, we're going to have problems. We don't want gout attacks. We don't want crippled people out here. We don't want all of these problems. And if they do this stuff because there's not enough water, there's not enough shrubbery, there's not enough vegetables, there's not enough this, there's not enough that, this is going to be a real problem. So those wild boars, don't be eating them. Make sure you find things with cloven hooves and all that stuff. I mean, you know, look it up. Look it up. It's very old. The kosher laws are very old. As a matter of fact, whenever I go buy hot dogs, I always buy kosher hot dogs, because I know they have special guys in their little beanie caps, and they go in there and say, no, it has to be like this, and it has to be like that, and it's good quality stuff. Costs more, but it's good quality stuff, because they have to adhere to the kosher laws, even to this day in the 21st century. But I still like tenderloin and bacon and pork chop. Oh my God, I just can't have it. What a bummer, dude. What a bummer. Now that is a pretty good indication of the kosher laws having to do with the physical body, and it was for that point in time and for those people living in the conditions of that place on earth. And when they crossed over the Jordan and came into the other place, they kept all of those laws, which didn't hurt them in the slightest, because the land was kind of the same. I mean, that's not really like Oregon or Washington or Idaho or one of those places like that, where everything is just like, whew, here you go. You know, if you were an American Indian living over there, I mean, everything was pretty much provided for. As long as you knew how to shoot a bow and cultivate, you were good to go. Come on, Kokomo. That's just how it was. But this place over here in the Old Testament, it wasn't like that at all. And the place they were going back to wasn't going to be like that at all either. The Promised Land. The Promised Land. You know, listen, I think of the Martin Luther King speech that I like so much, and he's talking about the Promised Land. That was the literal Promised Land, but the literal Promised Land, the real Promised Land, it wasn't anything like the Great Northwest of the U.S. Not even close. All right, now that we got the physiology component out of the way and talked about the physicality of the kosher laws, now let's move into the other three components of the kosher laws. And let's move into the scary, mystical stuff. Oh my God, no! But yeah, because this is something you really have to understand. Once you hear this, and all you have to do is hear it once. All you have to do is hear it one time. Once you hear this, so much stuff that you think, well, that's just stupid, is going to make so much sense to you. It will shift the way that you think about all of these things I'm talking about right now. It really will shift. So do not forget, all humans have four components. And now, since we're moving into the mystical arena of the people out there in the Sinai with Moses hanging out, we're going to be looking at the other three components. And not only that, but we're going to be looking at other dimensions, because dimensions opened up, you see, and other beings were popping in and out. Now let me tell you the story. I'm going to couch this in a story. This is going to be kind of a cool story, and I'm going to put it in the version of a story because I think it will have a better flavor that way, instead of so factual. You know, factual sometimes like, oh, you're